All right. Good evening and welcome back to our podcast. Of course, this is the Not Easily Broken, our Three Cord Strand podcast, where we share our lives to strengthen others. And we're going to kick off our discussion tonight with introductions. So, good evening. I am Chantel Leatherwood. I am the CEO of Leatherwood Coaching and Consulting. Samantha.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Samantha Wilson Murphy, and I'm the CEO and founder of Prevailing Woman Ministries, Incorporated.
And good evening, everyone. I am Cassandra Jackson, and I am a guidance college counselor and also a consultant. So thank you for joining us this evening.
All right. So tonight we're going to talk about a topic that we probably all struggle with. I know for me, I'm struggling with this right now in real life. So we're going to be diving deeper into our series of stewarding the clock, and we'll be talking about tonight, priority management is the key. And again, it's something I think we all struggle with in our busy lives. What do you think, Sandra?
I think that this is something that when we think about our values of culture, like grind culture, we have to ask ourselves, does it really relate? Is it biblical? Our business, is it biblical? And does it relate to align with the purpose that we're supposed to be doing? And today, as we explore what it means to manage our priorities according to God's design, not just reacting to the demands of the world. And so that's what we'll explore a little bit more today and getting a full understanding and looking at how our lives apply to that as well. Samantha?
Well, I love that we are going to have an honest conversation with our audience on today about, stewarding the clock and priority management being the key. But in full transparency, we don't get this information on our own. We utilize resources that have insight that we can glean from. And so today, we're going to be drawing our inspiration from an article on biblical counseling, and it is entitled Out of Control, Learning to Establish a Biblical Use of Time and Priorities. And listen, audience, I'm telling you, there are so many nuggets in this particular article that we look forward to sharing with you all. One of the things it really changes is how we misplace our priorities, and it helps us think about how we can look at a deeper problem, which is a heart problem, and how scripture helps us to reorder our lives. And so we look forward to being able to talk and share the nuggets we've been able to glean as they apply not only to our lives personally, but in ways that will also help you. The key verse that we will center our message around is found in Ephesians 5, verses 15 through 16. It says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil." I turn it over to Chantel.
All right, so we're going to kick off this discussion really with questions for ourselves, for us to address and talk through. But if you're listening, feel free to respond to the questions and share in the chat, and we will actually respond to your questions and comments as well, and encourage one another with this particular topic. So the first question for us to discuss, ladies, are there any areas in your life where you feel the most out of control right now, and why? Why do you feel that way?
Look, I'm going to let Cassandra start because she came in on two wheels tonight. And so we're just going to be real honest about that.
I'm sorry.
Come on.
It's happening, strengthening you throughout my life, strengthening you. I would say probably to answer the question, I really just do too much, quite honestly, and think I have more time or I can get more done in the time frame. And also because I am, when I do things, whether it's work, otherwise, or something that's program related, which I thoroughly enjoy, I just go extra and I just do way too much that's necessary. But I think the biggest things where I struggle and feel out of control is really managing my time. I have a to do list that I do every single day when I get up. I put it on my phone in my notes, and I've tried to narrow it down from what are my top five. And one of the things that I realized through that, what are the five priorities that I really want to make sure that I tackle that day? I've consistently have been looking at it for the past 2 weeks of just putting, okay, what's the top five? I really only get about three done, right? And I realize that I need to give myself more time. So that is something that I am managing. I double booked myself today. I didn't think I double booked it, but I stare laughing because I call them and we log on all the time at 4 o'clock. And I had our family had a lunch date with some friends. And I said, oh, I can do it, but I need to be gone by 3:15 because I have to log on for a podcast at 4. And it's like, okay. It's late getting there to the luncheon, took a wrong exit, went through the tunnel, had to circle back. So got to the lunch engagement half an hour later than anticipated. Great conversation, great visiting. And again, naturally, it's hard to leave from that. And then I'm getting in the car and like logging on. They're like, where are you? So, so I'm like, I shouldn't talk today, but I'm a key person of like this whole topic of making the most of your time. And then also examining, are the things that you're doing, is it biblical, or is it lining up what you are supposed to do that day, or are you overexerting yourself? And so that's where I would say for me, I feel most in control right now of managing my time and determining what is really necessary and that I can do in a day. So yeah, full transparency.
Well, look, we are not going to leave our sister hanging out there on a limb by herself as if we ourselves have it together, because we don't. And just thinking about, where I feel the most out of control. Let me tell you. So you have your day job and you have your priorities there. And then you turn around, and for me, I volunteer with an organization. I'm in a leadership position. I'm on an executive board. That comes with set amount of commitment and responsibilities. Then I am the CEO and founder of Prevailing Woman Ministries, and that means I'm running it, all the ins and outs and planning and executing and all of those things. And then on top of that, I do my own show called Your Prevailing Moment, where I am doing videos and posting them. And then I'm here, and I'm sure it's something else that I've left out. And I'm an author of these books that I can't even promote adequately because I'm doing all these things. And so it's insightful to have a discussion about the realities of how you spend your time. And not to mention, I'm a wife and I have a husband and responsibilities here in my home. And I never feel like I'm able to actually take care of my home in the way that I always envisioned I would. You have this plan when you get married, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and make sure your house runs, like this well-oiled machine. Everything's going to always be intact. But look, let me tell you, the space I'm in right now just got cleaned up real good, as best it was going to be. Oh, yes. When I so I'm just telling you. So when I finished my conference, which is our annual PWM conference in April, we brought everything upstairs and we put it on the floor, and I had not touched it.
Uh,
Uh, oh, Samantha froze.
okay, she'll log back
Yeah.
up. Well, she'll
Yeah.
tell why Samantha will come back. Maybe you can share how you might feel out of control right now.
Right now. Well, same kind of thing for as Samantha in terms of life has just been busy. My daughter graduated. There she is. You're back.
Oh my Wi-Fi went out. I'm so sorry. Okay. Well, there you
Finish your thoughts.
You want to finish your thoughts?
No, the bottom line is that all I can tell you is that she's not alone, and I have some things I need to get together, and I need to reconnect to a new Wi-Fi setup. So you all continue.
Okay. All right. Well, for me, same struggle as Samantha. My life has been extremely busy with my daughter graduating from high school, all the events associated with that, graduation, everything. I was at Samantha's conference. And then after her graduation, we planned a week-long trip, 7-day trip. Really, it was about 9 days, like of travel, coming back home. And so I've just been off focus, extremely busy. However, focusing on my family and things with my daughter is a key priority. My struggle is, I came out of being an executive leadership CEO, always busy, and those things often took more time and time away from my family, or just even myself, my life, what I needed to focus on. Just time to think about what's the next thing God wants me to do. Um, and so I've had to, here recently, thank God for rest and going on a cruise where God gets you out in the ocean by yourself and focusing on priorities, speaking to me about this particular podcast and really what he was preparing to do next in my life. So I will be entering seminary. My daughter will be going to school, and I'll be entering seminary at the end of August. God clearly spoke to me about it. And so now for me, I'm having to reassess my time. Like, okay, how am I going to get all these things done? Before I knew that, this opportunity to be a part of a Christian leadership organization came about. For me to even be a founding member and participate. And I felt like God was telling me I did not need to commit, but my flesh wanted to commit and be a part and try to make it happen. It was going to take time away from my client that I'm already committed to on Thursday mornings. But that wasn't even the thing. He was calling me to be in ministry. And so now I understand why he did not want me to commit all that time, but my flesh wants to be a part of it. Right. My flesh wants to be a part. Seems like the perfect opportunity, but God knows best. And so I have to lay that down and actually look at my calendar, reassess how my days are going to be, and whether or not I have time for other things. So everybody knows I'm an executive coach. John Maxwell got books on the desk. This is one, 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. He always talks about priorities and book on today's matter and winning the day. And so I'm always having it. He talks about the 3 R's and what's required of you, what's the reward, and what's required of you, what's the reward. Let me, Samantha, with the last one. And what's the return.
Return. Yes.
So I have to do that right now. I have to think about what's required of me, what needs to be in the schedule, what's the return, and what's the reward. Does it actually need to be in my schedule? And that helps me say no to things that people are presenting to me, because my flesh will want to say yes. So that's what I got going on. Once I get my daughter off to college, boy, life is gonna change.
So we think. So if someone looked at your calendar, what would they believe your priorities are? Right now, if you think about now as compared to maybe what your priorities are now, and then maybe given we've been talking about purpose, a lot of this all aligns. What your priorities are now, someone wants to look at your calendar, and then as you reflect what it is now, has it changed since we've been doing these podcasts on purpose?
Hmm. I could actually say, like for me,
what are your let's address the first one. What are your priorities? What does your calendar say your priorities are now?
right. So my calendar would say my priorities are now is focusing on, my clients. Most of my time is one client. I'm on site 4 days a week. And then I'm required to give them 4 more hours on Friday. And I have a client on Fridays every other week, and one on Saturday mornings once a month. And then now my struggle is I really need to leave on time so I can get home to my kids and the things they have to do. My son is still doing summer activities. And the one thing that's not in my calendar right now, which I was convicted about, is just using my talents in my local church. Well, but it's the season, right? Like I can't do a lot. One of my clients, huh? Let's say.
That's question number 3. So let's stay focused. So
that's my calendar. It would say that I'm focused really on the business and my daughter to get her off to college.
Okay, so we'll leave that there, and then we'll come back. I want you to reflect on, given what we have discussed about purpose. We've been doing this podcast for almost a year in September, which is fabulous. A lot of it is talking about purpose and what God's plan for, and seeing, has there been a difference? But Samantha, I'm going to let you answer, and then I'll also answer afterwards.
Okay. So a lot of things I don't write down, probably as I should. And, but for what I have written down, the things that I do know. So I go to work. Right now, I have jury duty, and I've been on grand jury for 6 months. So that has taken up and really just rocked my world, to be honest with you, because it has caused a complete adjustment in my work-life balance, and especially work and life, because I'm having to keep up with something that I don't normally have on my agenda. Then the other thing is my commitment externally to an organization that I volunteer, I serve, and I'm a member of, and those things hit, and the rest is really me plugging and playing everything else that's not written down, and trying to, do it. I mean, go to church, those commitments exist there because there are things that I do on a weekly basis. That's really, it doesn't tell the full picture. And it also means that I should be writing stuff down in order to be more accountable. And I clearly know that I am not. And that I need to do better. Boy, this wasn't supposed to be heavy like this. It was very convicting.
Real talk, so we're using our lives. to strengthen that.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh, I know I spend time with the Lord, but I'm like, I don't have that written down. I know I do this, but I don't have that written down. And it's just like I'm working it out. I also post my own, I'm committed to posting my individual show on Thursday nights, but I also have to carve out time every day to prepare. And so that's intuitively in the back of my mind, but it's not written down like, okay, what time am I really going to work on it? I don't write that down. I'm just like, okay, where am I going to do this? And so I haven't written it down, but I do have meetings for other stuff written down that I haven't done, which means I'm not giving it the full attention that it needs to give. But, even in reading this article, it talks about, God already gives us our highest priorities. And it says, like loving him first, loving others, fulfilling our biblical role. But, the point about your schedule revealing your heart. If my planner is packed with things that don't line up with my calling, then I need to re-examine my commitments.
We're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to that. That's good that we have, as you can see, we're having our own reflection and self-introspection on right now and confession right before you. So in that, I would say my calendar, my daily calendar, if I look back, it's pretty much, I will not write out. I use my notes in my cell phone pretty much every morning. And it includes the same thing from BPM, WM, WI. So if basically taking my blood pressure, because that's been a shift for me, and monitoring that, as well as because I am, again, health has been something that I've had to focus on, my devotion, and then I have the things, whether it's housework, laundry, that is a priority, is trying to get in on top of that. And then some previous work that I had to kind of finish up from work. Generally, I always have something as it relates to my family that I'm doing, whether it's having my son Joshua. The goal is to have him work on summer enrichment, or I'm bringing a daughter to work or something like that along those lines. And then exercises on there, as well as in our bills, and then reading, and then, family time. So that is pretty much my day. And as I said earlier, I have like my family time. So that, and this is for me, my schedule now, it's, I do a daily schedule, and my calendar is really based upon the summer, and I'm off during the summer for my work as a counselor. I do have some other roles as my as a program manager, what I do with another organization. But my priority has been primarily my health, I would say, my daily devotion, exercising, and trying to maintain my house as best as I can, whether it's paying bills, doing laundry, or spending time with the family, and that's a nice part of the summer for me, time to regroup. So we look back and we talk about these things, then reflecting on what we have been talking about for the past, since September, in some form or fashion, has been about purpose. What is God calling us to? Because a lot of this lines up, right? When we look at the article that we read, and just looking at as we started, has your calendar, has there been a shift in your calendar, or even your focus on the things that you've done from today versus back in October when we were doing the Purpose series?
It has. And let me tell you, one of the things is that I'm probably, because I've made some intentional commitments in some spaces, then that has pulled on my time in a way, that some of which I expected, but in another way I did not expect. And just because of shiftings in leadership and needing and trying to support and help where I can in another organization. Um, but the other part, that is also evolved for me is that I've been asked to be a part of things, been asked to speak, to preach, to moderate, to show up, as a consequence of the ministry giftings that are in me. And, those things have come about. And so while I know there are things I haven't written down, there are things like I'm actively doing
Mm-hmm.
that, that are geared toward me operating in God's calling on my life and the purposes that God has called me to respond to. So, preparing to, preach at a church in a couple of weeks. Studying and trying to pull together content for your prevailing moment, my own, video series that I have. Um, as scattered as it may be, it is still happening in the midst of that. Um, this weekend, I told someone last weekend that the only thing I wanted to do this weekend, still, the only place I want to be is still. And I've been able to be still this weekend and just be with my husband. And I have a little dog. Her name is Zoe Chanel. And so I have not left the house all weekend until this morning, when I got ready to when I left for church. And so I was able to accomplish that. But it also gave me space to organize this room that I sit in, this room that I study in, I pray in, I prepare in, all of those things. And
Mm-hmm.
so I said all that to say that, so my schedule has changed because I've been requested to be in spaces. I've said yes to those spaces. Um, and they were not decisions I made without praying. I vetted them through the 3 R's, and some of them are no brainers. I mean, God has called me to minister, and so that is while every opportunity isn't a yes, the ones that I know are a yes, then I respond to, if that helps. So yes,
And
that
I
is
can see as someone as a sideline or on the sideline looking in, yes, you have been more focused on your purpose as compared to think of like just a year out, right? Like more diligent from knowing that you had to do the conference, you're called to write the books, and in a very short time, feverishly completed the book, completed the journal, completed the scripture cards, and I would invite everyone to go to Prevailing Women Ministry website and look for the scripture cards, which are really beautiful 30-day cards that have scriptures that are affirmation that you can speak and just remind you of God's word and his promises and just encouraging. Great gift, but also just good for yourself. But you getting those done in every series that you've done, you've created new cards. And I know that takes work and that takes time. And so even though you might not write things down, just seeing, watching, right, in the preview, praying with you, seeing how you have made that shift of like, I'm going to walk now in my purpose, and this is what I'm called to do. And even though it's been a lot to manage that with everything else, I've seen you do it this year like never before, because you've had a conference every year, but to see you organize a conference, get speakers, but also complete the books and then the cards, all, like, I've never seen you work like that. And it's really, I feel like after like our series on purpose. And so you've aligned your time and your schedule to be obedient to the calling in the midst of all the other stuff that you have had to do. So I can attest to that, and seeing and been a bit beneficiary of the products that you have produced out of your obedience, and even using and giving it to my girls. Excuse me. Um, real life, but even in the obedience, been giving those cards to my young adult daughters and how they are using it, and it's like affirming them in their faith. And so out of your obedience, you see the fruits of that. Chantel, what about you? As you reflect on, has your schedule changed any what compared to today and the things that you'll focus on as compared to where we were in September and October? October, because that's when the series On Purpose really began.
So last October, I just really launched the business. Actually, I launched in February. But at that point, I just taken on this new client, finished a project for them, then started working with him on site 3 days a week. And then gave them 40 hours on Fridays, and then had really one coaching client at that particular point in time. And so now I'm there 4 days a week, focused on the business, and God called me to do it. Called me to take a step of faith and to do it, and to really focus on it and grow it. And so that really has taken up, in terms of like work activity, that has taken up most of my day. And so now I'm there 4 days a week. That limits how much time I can give to other things. But I just took on one other coaching client, and God has said you can't take on any more individual clients. Especially because my Friday afternoon needs to be free. And coaching clients need you at other times besides the set aside time that you've given them. So it's calls, emails. Joshua Murphy. He says, "You steward the clock, learn to say no." We don't get to that, Joshua. And so my time has shifted, and I've started going there 4 days a week just in June, because my daughter was a priority. My family is priority, and my daughter needed me through graduation, and I couldn't give any time. I couldn't give that time to them. She's graduated. Summer is calm. They're home doing nothing. But we're preparing to, get her off to school. So I could give them, an extra day, which has really been a blessing. God is blessed. Thank God. Just the business. And so the other thing is right now that I know he's called me to go into seminary, I'm reassessing my calendar again. Really numbering my days. Like, okay, what does it look like? Sometimes I assess how I feel. Like, do I feel stressed about my calendar? And so if I do, then I have this conversation. Like, okay, what's required of me? What's the return? What's the reward? Why am I stressed? If I'm stressed, I need to unbusy myself. So what do I need to take off so that I can get these things done? And not only that, but to get it done to the glory of God, which means that you have to have extra time in the calendar. And you can't, every single hour cannot be filled up with something. You need extra time in there to really give it the thought, the attention, to flesh it out, to make it be a really good product. And so for me, even going to school, like Samantha had to tell me, like there might be pride, probably pride, because I like A's and B's. I really want to make an A all the time. That might not be possible. I just need to do it to God's glory. So in saying that, I need to make sure I have space to do it, and to figure out how do I do that. Plus, my son will be the only child at home. And I'm excited about really pouring into him what he might be interested in. My husband works nights, so I really have to discipline myself because I like to work. I'm a workaholic. I am, and so I have to discipline myself to cut it off. Make sure I prioritize my family and come home so that I can pay attention to what they need. Um, and that also means that I really can't commit to a lot of other things. So people say, "Oh, girl, yeah, you can do this, and yeah, you can do that. Oh, yeah, you can come do that." No, no, I really can't. Um, you know, I really can't because I'll have to be intentional about all the additional time. Plus, you got to sleep, you got to sleep, you got to eat, you got to get up and work out. You, yeah, we need 7 hours at least. I need 7.
So
So,
yes, you're saying basically yes, your schedule has changed. You're reflecting on what you forgot as you reflect more clearly on what the purpose is and then what you are now, and as you feel a greater pull to go into ministry. And so in that, the preparation for seminary, the preparation, you didn't mention the right books, but I know also the right books, and then
oh,
also the stream and taking a step of faith that God has called you to this coaching business and that has given you an increase.
well, again,
And
in terms of the book, I'm glad you brought that up because really I need to finish it before I start sitting there. So now I need to shift my focus and make sure I'm intentional about the time I focus on the book. Because before Samantha's conference, I was on it. I hadn't touched it since the conference, which is, I'm putting it out there. I'm sharing my life. I haven't really touched it since the conference, and I really haven't had the time focused on Alexis and uh, making those memories with her. But now is the time I need to do it. I don't need to be distracted with getting the book done while I'm in seminary. I need to finish it, get that done, and then be focused on seminary. But I'm also expanding the business.
one thing
I
at
have
a time.
plans for September.
Look, let me tell you, as you all hear us working out our worlds, in real time, as we're just kind of going on and on here. Um, it is, you know, I think that, what you see here among us as we are, talking about our life and our experiences and where we are. One of the things that, I'm reflecting about this article about the season that we're in. And
Yeah.
the season, that we're in, it really does matter because the seasons will also dictate how you spend your time, and it also shifts how you spend your time. And so, as you heard, um, Chantel talk about, her daughter going off to college and the shift in how she chose to spend her time. Because the article, says busyness is a choice, just like, any other decision that we make, like busyness is a choice. Like we choose to be busy, but we don't have to. And then the other part, just like, Cassandra was talking about how her health and her blood pressure, all of the things, she's in a different season in her life where she's having to, make adjustments to not, be overwhelmed or stressed to cause her to, have her blood pressure through the roof, over something that she didn't need to be stressed out about. And me, making some commitments that I didn't have and really trying to drive, drive, God's agenda for my life and making sure that I'm obedient, you know, yes, doing that. One of the things that I mean, like, we have to identify our God given roles, all this in the article, understand what
Mhm.
each of those roles require us. And to my husband's credit, say no to what doesn't fit. As he's saying, as you steward the clock, learn to say no. The article says be able to say no without shame. Once we realize that that is not the space that we should be in. A friend of ours, she's not, I don't know if she's on, but if she ever watches it, she and I had a conversation not too long ago, and she said, you know, if God didn't call her to be in that space or to show up for anything, don't take it personal. It's about where God has her in this season. So if you invite her to something and she says no, it's like, yeah, nope, God didn't tell me to be there. I'm just not going to be there. If, and she was like, and she's my sister in Christ and we love her. And I'm not offended about where she is in her season because she can't be there. You know, if I invite her to my conference, she says, no, sis, I can't because the Lord is just, he has me in a place where I can only do this right now.
And that's really kind of key in point, the saying no. The season that I'm in has been no, right? God has tried and he's used different people, but I did not listen. So even back in October, as Chantel talked about kind of white space, you need to have some space to be able to do the other things. My schedule was jam packed. So between now and then looks completely different because my husband always says, you're a busy bee buzzing all around. And I'm like, no, I'm not. You know, I'm like, I was always ready to say yes and go. Whereas now I can't and I don't. And due to my health having extreme high blood pressure, going to the ER twice within less than 2 weeks apart of each other. And from being a person who's not sick to like, I'm like, what's going on? What's wrong? I don't feel stressed, but not even recognizing. And my schedule was full from work. I had as a job as a counselor before. I was a moderator of an affinity group. I was a counselor to another program that worked with first gen minority students, which these are things I'm very passionate about, as well as my full-time job as a counselor. Then I had the program manager. I had 2 or 3 different things I was doing at my church, small group leader, prayer minister, helping out with children. It was like they were all great things, right? Some all serving the Lord and others serving people until then my health started. And even though from Chantel to my mother-in-law, my daughters, this is kind of all like, you need to slow down. You can't. And I was like, I can do. This is fun being here, being where and giving. It's good things until, God had to get my attention. And pridefully, and I'm like, I'm never sick. What's going on? This is happening that I slowed down, that things he had been telling me to cut and I avoid doing because I enjoyed it or I liked it. And then I was like, did I really hear that? Maybe not. Let me keep on till then cutting everything, like literally. And people are like, what's going on? Wait, you're not going to be doing the affinity group anymore? Like, and I started it at the school with kids, did it for 6 years. And it's like, and I feel weird and odd, but I'm like, I have to be, I can't continue to do this, right? When my physician is telling me, you need to rest, you can't do this. To things at church, I'm like, sorry, I can't do this. This is great. Because I'm like, at the end of the day, it's like, you need to take care of yourself and your family. And what is God calling you to do? Right. And so for me, my schedule has been in the period of rest. I'm reading this book called Rest is Resistance, and it's by Tricia Hersey. It's the Nap Ministry, and it just really talks about the grind culture and how like grinding and how ancestors really, they've had to work as slaves, if you will, but we have the privilege to be able to rest. But because we are so sucked in the business or the grind culture making it happen, we don't. And so, and it's talking about resting as a form of fighting the oppression of capitalism, even white supremacy. And it's like, wow, I never looked at it that way, because it's saying, you heard us each say some point or another, making it happen. We're going to make it happen because we could make it happen. We had goals. And now we're reflecting of like, no, like we can't. So we need to stir the clock a little, because I'm like, I want to be around. I want to be around to raise my 15-year-old son and be around to see my future grandkids and see my children do what they need to do and have an enjoyable life. So I can say I definitely do. And when we look at question number 3, what biblical roles do we feel needs more attention? Sounds like Chantal, you kind of led into it. For me, it's continuing resting and seeing now, God, you're calling me to step back from some of these things. What is next? But it's continuing for me, learning how to rest, learning to hear. Okay, God is kind of saying pivot. Now that He's saying pivot, what is He saying pivot to? And being open and not being stubborn, if you will, to try to, I can make it happen or I could do it. And it's a good thing or it's a God thing that's in ministry. But it's like just because it's in ministry, that might not be where God is calling you for this season. And so for me, it is finding where is He calling me to pivot to at this point and saying yes to that. And so continuing to rest. What about one of you? What do you feel like you need more attention in your biblical role? Do you feel you need more attention?
Yes.
Yes, all of that.
Like, yes, because here's the reality. You know, your priority management is really, really important. And, you know, everything that we have read and even been preparing for this talks about how God really has He's given us enough time to do His will. It's ultimately about how we are operating and fulfilling it. Like, are we really taking the time to evaluate what, you know, He would have us to do? I'll be honest, I probably don't get up asking myself every day, like, okay, Lord, how do I need to plan my day? I get up and just do the day and I get to work. I know once I get to work, my brain shifts to everything that's going on there. But I also know that my brain is, you know, is clouded with the other things that I know I need to do. Some stuff I take my lunch break and have to do. And I'm like, okay, I'm balancing, you know, is there real work-life balance going on? And so, you know, where are my boundaries? And so I'm having to assess that even now, like right before I was like, you know, I said, I got some assignments that's due. I don't take the calling on my life lightly. I prepare in a certain kind of way, and I can't let anything or anyone deter me from how I prepare, you know, when I'm called to fulfill an assignment, particularly, you know, if I'm speaking at somebody's church, if they're entrusting me, you know, to be a guest, to speak life into their congregation, that's nothing I need to take lightly. So my preparation period is very sacred. And so I have to, you know, say no to things that are going to take me away from fulfilling that. I don't want to, I want to honor the Lord. I want to honor the calling on my life. I want to represent God well, the ministry God has given me well, even my church where I've gotten training and equipped, you know, to do the work. I want to represent them well. And so I don't, you know, so I think about, so I need boundaries. So I need to work on that, you know, and to fulfill my God-given purpose, you know, in a better way. And so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a point before I say that.
I think
Go on.
Samantha, go ahead and finish your point.
Go on.
I just want to note, we had some notes here, and one of the points in our notes was that, you know, although saying no might be hard, it says Jesus had boundaries. He said He didn't heal every person or respond to every demand. He stayed on mission, and that's convicting because it should challenge us. Because sometimes we equate busyness with being faithful, and they are not the same under any circumstances. And so just because we're doing a lot, it doesn't mean that we're doing a lot in alignment with everything that God has called us to do. And that's the thing that we really need to evaluate. Every person who's listening needs to know that just because you're busy, it doesn't mean you're being faithful. So,
are you busy in ministry too? That's the other thing, right?
Yeah, because being busy in ministry also is not the same. Thank you. Exactly.
Chantal, what about you? What is that you feel you need to And your biblical role that you feed needs more attention, needs more of your attention.
Attention. So I think, I said a little bit before, I can be a workaholic when I get focused. And so I need to make sure that, I'm managing, paying attention to my family's needs, and just people, uh, in general, like people. Um, so I do a good job calling my friends, Samantha and Cassandra, but just other people, because I can get real focused, and so making sure I take time out to call, say, "Hey, how you doing?" And seeing people and ministering to people outside of my home and my best friends. The other thing is, so Samantha mentioned just knowing your purpose and being clear about it. Actually, I had my own coach had a coaching session and talked through some of the things that was going on with me, and I was a chatterbox, like, oh, I got this and this and this and blah blah blah, and I'm 4 days a week here, and I was asked to do this, and then we got the podcast and blah 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 blah. And he is like, Chantel, well, that sounds like a lot. and I said, yeah, it probably is. He said, so just thinking that through, do you really need to spend that much time? Like, if you were to give it a percentage, in order of percentage, how much time do you need to spend on this one? And then, really, these things probably should only take 1 to 2% of your time, or you really shouldn't be that concerned about it. And where he was trying to get me back to is that, God has called you to, you're an entrepreneur. And my coach, it's a Christian leadership group. And so really believing that, God uses entrepreneurs to help expand the kingdom. Because you can get into places and spaces that other people might not otherwise get into to share the gospel. And so if God has given me this tool to get into places and spaces to impact them, then I need to make sure that my time, 80%, is spent on building out this business that God's called me to build to impact His kingdom. And so he trained my he realigned my thinking to, now that you're at this client and you've been there for a year, you've been there for some time, what are some of the key strategies and interventions you've developed, things that you could take and replicate and go and take it to somebody else? So you got my mind to thinking, like, oh, man. Oh, this really impacted them, so I should probably package that up and take it to somebody else. So I need to make sure I'm spending my time there, because God has called me to do it. Like, when I get before the great white throne, I want to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. And He's given me kids and my kids to raise and steward. So I need to make sure I spend time with them and really keep assessing it. The other issue for me is, I can have the best plan, I can lay it out, but this article talks about disorganization. Trying to find where it talked about disorganization, because
I see any heart that is another heart issue is that disorganization and lack of direction may be a reflection of a lack of self-control and a lack of discipline.
Discipline, yes.
Yeah.
So that out, right. So that's an area God has been dealing with me on, self-discipline. And so it's, if I put it down, I need to do these things, then I need to discipline myself to do those things. Um, and oftentimes you're just like, oh, I don't feel like it. High court, it talks about this. You do the small things first because you don't want to tackle the big things. Mary Jackson said, "Hey," but so that's the other one. It's just the discipline to make myself do the things I need to do at the time in which I've allocated on my schedule, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that we can be effective and fruitful uh, for the Lord.
Mm.
The article lays out some practical biblical principle for managing priorities include identifying your God-given roles. What are your God-given roles? So that may be what you're doing out in the marketplace. So that's your job. But what is your God-given role at home as well? Or if he's called you to something else, if you are serving in ministry, serving in capacity in nonprofits, but what identifying what's your God-given roles. Second, understanding what each role requires, right? And so even in that assessment of what does it require, you're thinking about if your God-given role is to be uh, providing parental care or a spouse or caring for a parent, elderly parent, or maybe mentoring other people. What is your legacy? How are you pouring in? And if you are leaving a legacy, that means you're putting time in. What does that role look like to be able to do that, right? As compared to, I'm just that, and you just do the basics. We are, particularly, we talk about stewarding our time or stewarding the clock. Also, whether it's marriage, whether it's relationship, you steward those as well. And it's looking at the time that you're putting in into leaving a positive impact and saying no to what does not fit, right? That is what we've heard even in the comments by Joshua today, saying no is a sentence without any explanation. And a lot of times, as you said, no is a complete sentence and it does not require an explanation. And a lot of times we feel guilty that we have to prove or justify why we can't, because being part of the grind culture, we have to show our, we care, we need to do this. But it's like, no, I'm sorry, we can't. And that is kind of taking back of our time and what is it we're calling to. What are our primary roles and what are the roles that guys require us? Because we are going to have to give an account. Give an account of our time, give an account of our words. And we sometimes we act like we just have time to just do whatever and it's going to be. But, I think about the parable. And as we wrap up of the three who had gifts that were given, and one really, the manager gave them gifts, and he says, "Okay, they had talents. One went out and made got five. One did some others at three, and then you had one. He said he actually didn't do anything with it. And so you think about, and he thought he had time, but when he came back in return, they were given double portion for what they had, and the one who didn't steward his time properly or did what he needed to do, his gifts, his things were taken and given to the other one that many. And sometimes we think we have time, maybe what God has called our purpose, and we busy ourselves with other things that may seem like it aligns, or maybe it's just what we want to do. Let's just be honest. But it's like, does it align with what He has called us to do? And are we one seeking first the kingdom of God and His righteousness? Because He says, and all these things will be added. Because that's ultimately what we need to do first, so that we can hear from God. What is our purpose? How should we be spent? What's our focus should be? And then also then there would be reflection in our character and our nature as we interact with the world to build the kingdom of God here on this earth. Um, any lasting comments from the two of you that you may have on this topic as we close up this evening?
There are lots of things that we've said, and boy, we could really go on. And I know it's close. Well, actually, it's close to us closing out the show. But being faithful means investing in the right things, not just doing everything. Please keep that in mind. But one of the things that we want to encourage you all to do, I know we didn't get to any Q&A during this time, but this week, write down your biblical roles, and beside each one, um, what that looks like. One way you can better steward your time is understanding what does your role look like, as Cassandra was talking about. And then ultimately do what we're having to do is really assess where are you investing your time, and where are you in this season, and what is it that God is calling you to do to prioritize your time, and do you need to make some shifts somewhere, as we know that we need to do as we think about the seasons that we are in. So we thank you so much for allowing us to share our lives to strengthen others. Hopefully, you got something out of it. You learn what not to do, and you also learn some things that you need to do as a consequence of us talking about priority management being key.
Mm-hmm.
And
All
tell them
right.
that.
All right. Well, I'll adjust. Samantha really made a really good point. I'll just leave you with this scripture from Psalms 90 and 12 that says, "Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom." And this article talked about the fact that not only does God give us just 24 hours in the day, but He knows when He's going to call us home to glory. And if He's prompting us, to do something now, then we really need to readjust, realign, and pray and seek Him about what it is that we need to do right now and how to fulfill what He's asking us to do right now, because our days are numbered. They are numbered. And so we should make the most of every opportunity to fulfill what God has called us to do in the particular season of life that we're in. So we thank you for joining us tonight as we continue to share our lives to strengthen others. And we will see you next month as we continue on this series. So thank you again, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.